You're on 45 grand, you quit that. Are you making more money now or when you're working full time?
We're making around about 35 grand per month. When you look at being employed, it's kind of like being paid to forget your dreams.
Personal development extends beyond the figure that's in your bank account.
How many times have you sold a deal to an investor and made a nice big fat fee?
We're 20 times as of today.
So on average, how much are you getting paid?
Per deal, it's 5,000.
The revenue we make, an average of about £6,000 per month across the 4 properties.
Why are most people so poor? Well, firstly, thanks so much for coming on the show. You've got experience in BRR, you've got experience in deal sourcing, in lease option, in rent to rent, in serviced accommodation. So this is going to be a great, informative, thrashing out interview. But firstly, what was it that made you agree to come on and do this interview and share your secrets?
Well, firstly, thanks for giving us the opportunity to share our story. The Samuel Leeds, the whole team, yourself and everyone around you has definitely given us the confidence and the foundation. But coming on today is just to share our story, just be it that we're working class, we're average Joes and that anyone can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the same that I was going to add, just to really inspire people. Even coming into this, we were so apprehensive, but once you've got the training and everything under your belt and get that confidence, it's just belief, isn't it? And just try and inspire people from a similar background.
How do you work out a business plan when you're getting loads of training, you're on the academy, and there's all these shiny objects, lease options, service accommodation, rent to rent, deal sourcing, joint ventures, land development, and it can be a bit overwhelming, kind of like, oh my gosh, whereas what you've done is you've really found your niche. How do you do that when it's easy to get so distracted?
Yeah, great question. Well, for us, because we've had direct and indirect experience, so indirect experiences, we've always been in and around property, and then directly, basically done up property ourselves. And for us, we basically come from a full-time employed. So I come from a corporate background doing around 60 to 70 hours per week. Rachel's the exact same. I'm sure you'll tell your story in a moment. So for us, we thought, right, how can we look to have a better way of life, have life on our terms? And because we're having really, really kind of hectic, chaotic weeks, we had to just keep disciplined. Yeah. So for us, I think one of the key tips we can give anybody is just monetize your time, is understanding how, we all have 24 hours in a day. So how is it we can preserve the seconds, look after the minutes? So coming back to your question, how do we do that? We thought, right, where is our skill set? And we knew about, BRR's developments and helping portfolio landlords. So then we just honed in on BRRs.
Well, what I've noticed is people spend hours and hours doing stuff that doesn't make money. Unproductive nonsense that makes them feel like they're doing stuff. Tinkering with the website, scrolling on Rightmove, thinking, strategizing, going out for cups of coffees with people, which is good. Good. But all this tinkering and thinking and what's going to actually make money?
Yeah, key results.
You've got to focus on the money-making activities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, to be honest, when you do all of that training and it's so informative, everything sounds great at the time, and it's quite probably the biggest challenge that we faced early on was knowing which route to take, because each strategy attracted us. And it's only when you focus and you look at your lifestyle and you think, with the resources we've got, how can we feasibly make this work? So, we came into this thinking we want to do BRR, we want to invest in property. And then obviously the more that we learned as we went along, we were like, we need to build cash flow first and foremost. Right. We need to work around our current jobs. So obviously we started looking into serviced accommodation, thought about the deal sourcing side, but ultimately serviced accommodation was our first route in. So got our serviced accommodations up and running. That gave us the cash flow to enable Ben to then leave his job, which gave us the time to then focus more into the deal sourcing, the BRRs, the project management. Ultimately, it's just really understanding what you've got to hand and how best you can make that work for you, isn't it?
And putting that more in practice is, like, in any business, is actually getting the blueprint, and both having experience and basically with my corporate finance background, I used to have to go to businesses and design, deploy and deliver that blueprint, but I never had the confidence to go and take that into property. But obviously with yourself and Russell, and obviously all the detail that we have there in regards to the business plan, it was kind of giving us the ingredients for the cake, and then we can go and do that. Now, putting that in practice per day, per week, we used to use tools like Forest and stuff that would used to monitor your time.
Right.
So every single Sunday, we would review our week. Sounds quite corny and cheesy, but for us, it was really impactful, wasn't it? And I think being full-time employed, when we actually looked at, well, actually, we've put 23 hours into the business this week, or we've not done enough there, because basically it's a formula, isn't it? It's how many calls can we make, how many viewings can we make, and what's our conversion of that? So that's basically.
What was your salary, Ben, before you quit your job?
Salary about 45 with commission.
So you're on 45 grand, you quit that. Are you making more money now or when you were working full time?
Yes, we're making around about 35 grand per month.
Now?
Correct.
Why are most people so poor?
From my perspective, I think everybody has the ability to achieve that higher salary, but we're conditioned in such a way that makes you feel forced down a certain path, forced to believe that your worth is capped at this figure in your salary, and but if I leave, and I had it from some of my nursing friends when I left and went full-time agency nursing and then further with the business, it was like, but how do you feel not knowing that your income's not guaranteed? And I'm like, well, it's only not guaranteed if you're not going to put the work in.
And nothing's guaranteed.
Your boss could sack you tomorrow.
Right. So is it fear then? Is it fear?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's fear and comfort, isn't it? Because when you look at being employed, it's kind of like being paid to forget your dreams as such. When you have that 9 to 5 mentality, but coming from where we are, obviously from a working class background, we looked at how kind of broken our families were in regards to just basically physically and mentally. In that, both our families work within kind of key workers and public services and things like that, but all my family's in the trade as well. So when I'm seeing a family member at 40-odd-year-old and they're struggling to get out of bed in the morning and medicate themselves, it's kind of the point where we were thinking to ourselves, well, there must be a better way. And how do I trade my time? And then for us, the second thing, we've had people around us in our inner circle, kind of primary, secondary circle, that have said, oh, I won't do that. Oh, and you have to, one, fight through those comments, but two, coming back to your analogy you've used in the past about how comfortable are you, and how much does it hurt to take action?
Do you want it enough?
Yeah, well, people try and advise and they're broke. I love running crash courses because there'll be 300 people in the room and I'll say, raise your hand if you've read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And most of the hands will raise up. And I'm like, whoa, a bunch of enlightened entrepreneurs, not necessarily rich, maybe just starting out your journey, but being rich I honestly believe is a mindset thing. If I'm hanging around people, if I'm at a crash course and everybody's got that mindset of, yes, they're entrepreneurs, even if they're broke and they've got nothing in the bank, I can hang around them. Who I can't hang around is I can't hang around people that are broke in here, really skeptical. And I know you had it. A lot of your family and friends were very concerned.
Yeah, I mean, verbally they were supportive, our families in particular. It was like, oh, that's great, but your family, the body language, the subtle cues and the check-ins, is everything all right? But yeah, I think probably we have had challenges with that. We've struggled with maintaining friendships, I would say, because we're the value of our time and trying to...
How do your friends feel when you earn their annual salary in a month?
To be honest, we're at a point where we're maintaining the friendship, but we don't speak about it, do we? Because it's almost like
it's a taboo subject. You don't bring up in conversation.
How's everything? Good, great. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about the football, the weather. Let's just pretend it's not happening. Not that they're jealous. I think it's just so foreign for people from our background.
People sometimes someone will come to a crash course and they'll be making $2,000 a month, and I'll be like, man, let me introduce you to Elliot and Ibby and this person and this person and this person. They're making $35,000 a month. They're making $50,000 a month. This person made $2 million last year. And then the person will say, I don't believe it.
Yeah.
They don't believe it because to them it's weird. But to me it's normal. I don't believe they're making $2,000 a month. I can't get my head around it. What, you only make $2,000 a month?
Yeah.
What? I don't believe it. Don't make any sense.
Yeah.
Well, we've done this in kind of phases, haven't we? In that myself and Rachel have been kind of contracted as such. So kind of 90% of my career has always been kind of self-employed, and Rachel working from public to then going private healthcare in a mixture. And that was hard enough. Phase one for us was telling people, yeah, I can meet you on that day or I can meet you at this time, but obviously outside the normal confines of 9 to 5. And that's where the awkwardness started to come on. And then phase two, then when we started to think, right, well, how can we make our money work hard for us? How can we explore other strategies and investments? But then when we started to tell people that, yes, we've achieved this, but a lot of the people then don't see the sacrifice because we've probably missed every single event. We're never within the area, are we?
They're like, well, why are you not going on holiday this year? Quite busy.
Exactly. So for us, it's a little bit of a taboo subject.
Yeah. So talk to me about your main strategy then. What is it?
Our main strategy prime and simple, is BRR.
Right.
That's where we came to, the whole academy. So basically...
Because that was the first course you did, I think.
Correct.
Yeah,
Then it was literally from that course alone, then we joined onto the academy. Where we've come at this is using the experience we've got indirectly, directly, then we've got a full end-to-end team. And we thought, right, well, how can we approach this slightly different? So we basically only came to the academy to do this for ourselves. So to actually start to build our portfolio.
Right.
And then we started to see the wider world of investments and investors. So then we started to realise, oh wow, there's a whole world out there. And it's almost like opening the curtains and seeing that you've got nationwide investors and then overseas investors. And with our experience and my experience within valuations, I've only ever seen other things like commodities or equities and stocks and etc. But then to see there's a wide world of people who actually want to turn their liquidity into equity, coming into then starting our own BRRs and our own couple of projects, we started to get more and more people. So then from that, we've kind of grown this just 100% organic list of investors who've come to us for BRRs. But yeah, going back to your question, it is BRRs.
So it's buy, refurbish, refinance, but not just for yourself, but also selling deals to others.
Correct.
Quick fire question then. Property. Rachel, why do you invest your money in property? You've looked at lots of other stuff, stocks, businesses, crypto. Why did you choose property? Because there's nothing wrong with the other assets.
Yeah.
But I think property is the best, hands down.
Yeah.
But why do you?
There's a reason that's the saying safe as houses, isn't there? Like,
Yeah.
it's something that is safe now, but also is going to appreciate over time. It's going to give you a return in the meantime.
Yeah.
And it just opens doors. Like, there's so many different strategies and the creativity that you can apply to it. Like Ben said, we joined thinking that we're going to go straight into BRRs, and then when we sat back and thought about it from a business development perspective, we were like, there's so many other creative strategies with serviced accommodation, obviously the deal source in BRRs. There's so much you can do with it that...
Well, the bank won't give you a loan to buy Bitcoin.
No.
The bank won't give you a loan to buy gold. They won't give you a loan to buy cryptocurrency or stocks, or even generally to go into business, because a business can go to zero. Stocks could even go to zero. Crypto can go to zero. Property can't go to zero. Because even if you remove the house and smash it to smithereens, the land itself is worth a lot. And not only does it hold its value, it also gives you rent. Gold doesn't give you rent. So I think from an investment perspective, everyone wants to invest in property. And what you're doing that's so smart is not only are you investing in property yourself very strategically and you've educated yourself, but because you've got a system and you've got a power team and you've got builders and you've got the experience, you're building your own portfolio, you can't buy every property you look at.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly that, yeah.
So why not sell the opportunities to investors?
Yeah.
How many times have you sold a deal to an investor and made a nice big fat fee?
We're 20 times.
And you're charging a project management fee as well?
10%.
Yeah.
So on average, how much are you getting paid for the sources fee and the project management fee combined on average per deal?
So per deal it's 5,000, but it always works on a percentage of the deal.
$5,000 for everything, or $5,000 just for the
fee, and then 10% of the refurb.
And how
for
much
the
are
project
these
management.
refurbs? 50 grand?
Yeah, it ranges from 50 to 70.
So you might get about 10, 12 grand,
Yeah.
and you've done that 20 times?
Correct.
So
Nice.
it's obviously higher ticket in the sense that it's paying us not once, but then over and over.
Yeah.
But then we've got control over the vision that we had for the property that we sold at that time. They have the confidence in us to then carry that forward and obviously present that at the end. Especially if you're overseas or you're, most people that are investors, they don't want to be on site. They don't want to be doing all the little tidbits themselves.
No.
So a lot of them, the ones that we've spoken to, they've either invested lightly in property or they've not taken it very seriously or scaled it.
Yes.
So when they discover that you can give them that hands-off experience, it's like eye-opening, isn't it?
Exactly, and for us, there's two other angles to this. There's the fact of helping someone, but then there's two other ripple effects. And the second one is when you've had that kind of compelling success story together, you can obviously earn that trust and help them build their own portfolio. So there's been some portfolio landlords that we've helped turn equity into liquidity. I don't want to get too complicated on that. But then other investors that, with a BRR, we'll do the first one, and then we're already thinking of the second, third, and fourth.
Right.
So that kind of rinse.
And this is the crazy thing. There's people sat there with houses that they own. They're sitting on a house, they own it. 200 grand house, they've got a little mortgage, 50 grand mortgage. And it's like, hang on a minute. You could get a new mortgage, leave 25% in, and pull out 100 grand. And in their mind, everything's backward because they're thinking, whoa, hold on. If I take out 100 grand, that means that now my mortgage is bigger. It does. But if you use that 100 grand and reinvest it strategically, then that's how you get rich.
Exactly. And on that point, whilst we're on it, we've actually helped different landlords that have anything from 2 properties, 1 property, up to, well, the best part of 140 odd properties that actually draw down around about 1.82 million now. And that's just between 5 people. So of them 5 people, 3 of them have actually turned into investors.
Right.
Because we've, like you rightly say, we've helped them unlock that and said, well, what do I do with this now?
Well, let me ask you a question then. If I get 100 grand equity from my house and then I want to invest it in property, what's the best type of property? What am I buying?
Oh, BRR all day long.
Talk to me. Give me some examples.
So to start with, let's start with just basically your small, less intimidating project. So what we try and look for is all the properties that we find are off-market, direct to vendor. So first of all, that's given us a nice, healthy parachute of 15 to 20% below market value.
So hang on, you're not going on Rightmove.
Nope.
You're not going to agents.
Nope.
They're off market.
Correct.
We did build agent relationships early on, and that has in turn provided us with leads. So, like letting agents that they've got clients
Only
who
letting agents, not estate agents.
So how are you finding these off market deals? Where are they coming from?
Great question. We like to call it the agony ants. We like to call it anyone who comes into contact with a landlord. It could be the milk person, it could be the postman, it could be the tradesman. Mainly it's tradesmen. So we're talking brickies, electric, joiners, whatever.
Yeah.
And saying to them, are you aware of any landlords who would look to exit or looking to acquire property and things like that? So that's one angle.
Right.
Second angle is speaking with letting agents. They seem to differ slightly from estate agents in our view. So a letting agent is obviously going to help someone rent, whereas an estate agent is going to help someone sell as well.
Right.
Whereas what we've been finding is some of the market valuations from the estate agents have been heavily or grossly overvalued, whereas the letting agent just says, I cannot give you that figure, let me introduce you to Synergy Estates. So we've actually had quite a lot of introductions where the landlord said, what do you think this is worth? And then that's where we work with our brokers and do certain
So we
things.
found with On Market Deals, obviously at the start we were doing like the whole Gumtree, Rightmove, all of that, and we did get some productive leads through it, but it was a lot harder in the sense that we're in that funny phase now where we had obviously last year where it was a seller's market, and now we're in a period where you would argue it's more of a buyer's market, but the sellers still think it's a seller's market, and then it's like this weird...
Well, they're idiots.
kind of
And they hopefully get hit bad with interest rates and quickly realise... Because the thing is this as well. If you buy an average house from an estate agent and you don't buy strategically... Because if you want to buy a really good deal, you've got 2 options. One option is to buy from a deal sourcer. That's the lazy option. But that's an option. The other option is to get trained and learn how to go and find the deals yourself. Yeah. Those are the 2 options. Because if you just go to an estate agent and you say, can I have a house? If you end up buying a house, it's 250 grand, but you get 20 grand below market value, congratulations. And it's probably only worth 230 anyway, it was 20 grand overpriced. So you just got a property and you paid 100% market value. Yeah. Then your mortgage is 75%. So your mortgage payments currently at 6% are going to be about £1,000. Well, the average rent is £1,000, so you're going to make nothing. Yeah. But then you're going to pay tax on the entire £1,000 because of Section 24 tax. So on your nothing, you'll pay about £250 a month tax. Then you got maintenance, then you got management, and then you quickly realise that that asset that you thought was an asset is actually a liability, and you realise you should have paid a deal sourcer, or you should have just done some training and bought a good property investment, and you're screwed. You got no team, you got bad builders messing you around, you didn't buy through a company because you didn't understand. So it's important that you understand what to buy, how to buy it, when to buy it, where to buy it, and who to use as your power team.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Coming back to your original question on an actual project and tying into what you've just said there, what we love is properties that are unloved, vacant. So one of the projects we can tell you about, if anyone's a newbie coming into developments now, is this project we had, it's 3 miles out of Manchester city centre, and it's basically a mid-terrace house. Right. Now, it was vacant for 3 to 4 years. Estate agents couldn't value it. They had in their mind that it was going to be around about 115. We said to them, we can't offer more than 95. Now, this property is first, second fix, everything.
Full
it's
back to brick refurb.
Full back to brick, not watertight at all. Long story short, 95 grand purchase. It was actually valued at 115. Now the GDV is 185, and then the refurb is 45 grand with a 10%.
So let's go through the figures real quick. So you bought it at 95.
Yes.
Refurb 45.
Yes.
Stamp duty to pay or uninhabitable?
Uninhabitable.
Oh, nice.
Yes, exactly.
So no stamp duty. Although, again, the solicitor will still make you pay stamp duty. You have to tell them.
Of course you do. You have to educate them.
So if you skip the seminar, then that's an extra... You pay £5 in stamp duty you didn't have to pay. It's like, why are you paying $5,000 in stamp duty? Oh, because the solicitor told me. You don't have to pay that. Oh. And these are the same people that say, I don't want to spend $2,000 going on a course. That's a waste of money. Is it? Is that a waste of money, or was the $5,000 stamp duty a waste of money that you're paying over and over because you're an idiot? Yeah. And then the solicitor will say, let me check, and then come back and go, oh yeah, you are correct. Boom. Yeah. So anyway, off my chest now. So 95 purchase.
Yes.
$40,000.
Yeah, 45 grand.
45 grand. So in total, that's about 140. And then end value, how much?
185.
So that's 45 grand profit.
Conservative, yeah.
And then what's going to happen with that? Are they going to sell and make 45 grand profit?
Well, no, they're not going to flip. They're basically going to exit onto a HMO mortgage. Yeah, going to refinance that.
Right. And that's the thing, because if you sell, you'll pay tax.
Correct.
And this business is all about doing it and not paying tax.
Exactly. So the lovely thing about this is this was actually a landlord that we took one of their service accommodations, basically a rent-to-rent.
Okay.
For a 5-year service accommodation in Liverpool.
Yeah.
So this actual landlord, and this is why it was so complimentary to us, because this was our first landlord we converted to an investor. And we've got roughly about 5 or 6 now. But for us, he said, how is it you're finding these properties, and how is it that you can, get around, the 75% loan to value? And basically, I asked him how you scale in your portfolio, and just open up with value, tell me your position. And what he was doing, he was basically trying to make ends meet, like scraping together that 75% loan to value. And then obviously we made him around about tier 2 lending, and on that particular property I've just discussed, he actually got a market val bridge, so bridge development. But even better than that, he got 100% of his development funds as well. So coming back to the original question on how is it that, how would you educate someone now? We would say, well, make sure it's very low risk, make sure your funds are repeatable and go again. But for this particular investor, he only had to put in around about 32,000. Whereas if he was going to do it the more traditional way, he was going to put in around about, best part of 60,000 without anything else.
Right.
I think that's the beauty of BRRs as well, and obviously with having the deal sourcing that provides that full end-to-end process. We've got that relationship with the bridges and the brokers, the whole solicitors, power team and everything, that when we get an investor that comes to us and wants that BRR, and they're wanting, obviously everybody wants an all money out unicorn deal or as close to, but that one pot of cash that ordinarily 75% loan to value buy to let, 10 years ago traditional investing would have got you one property that might give you £200-300 a month. They're now seeing that they can give that to us, reinvest it, and build their portfolio.
So talk me through this then. So the idea is that they buy a house, maybe for 95 grand, spend 45 on it. Then when you've pushed the value up and it's now worth 185, rather than selling it and making a profit or just sitting on it, you then get a new mortgage. 75% loan to value. This is what people can't get their heads around. Maybe you have to watch this interview back a couple times till you get your head around this. When you buy a property, normally you get a mortgage and you'll put in 25% deposit and you'll borrow 75%. Because a lender will give you 75% of the value. So if you change the value of the house by doing things like turning an uninhabitable property into a habitable property, you push the value up. You can then get a new mortgage against the new value. Now your value is 185. So you're getting 75% of 185, which means you're getting your money back. So if an investor buys a house, cash, refurbs it, cash, or bridge, some of the clever ways, effectively cash, then refinance it, they'll get their cash back. Ideally all of it. Yeah. Maybe most of it.
Yeah.
But ideally all of it, if it's an all your money out deal. And then they'll use that cash to do it again and again and again and again. So they'll keep buying houses over and over and over and over, but every time they want a house, they come to you.
Yeah.
So you keep getting paid over and over. They keep growing their portfolio over and over. And also you're growing your own portfolio at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So win-win for everybody.
Yeah, it is. It is. How are you finding investors to sell to?
Yeah, so obviously as Ben touched on, we've been very fortunate in that some of the investors, we've used their services to basically package deals up for other investors. So let's say that they've got a portfolio of their own and we're taking those on as rent-to-rents, lease options, passing them on to some of our other investors. They're obviously inquiring about our services. They're then obviously wanting to purchase. The other way is what we are quite proud of doing is that we've not had to do arguably a great deal of outreach beyond obviously the the initial months where you're doing all of your networking and you're doing your thing, you're getting yourself out there, and obviously we still do network, but 90% I'd say of our investors now come through pure organic referrals. So people that have been happy with our services in the past, family, friends, professionals, business partners. I say we've got kind of nationwide and overseas investors. So yeah, a lot of it has been by professional referrals and interpersonally from
That's the thing, when people say to me, oh, how do you find investors though? Oh, as if an investor's going to pay you $5,000. It's like, you're an idiot. You're an absolute idiot. Of course an investor's going to pay you $5,000. If you find a deal that's worth 150 grand and you get it for 110, and it needs 20 grand refurb and the end value's 180, I mean, of course they're going to pay you $5,000. What are they going to do? Go and find it themselves?
Yeah.
If you're knocking off 50 grand off of the value, 50 grand discount, $5,000, they're still making 45 grand. Yeah. People that say, oh, how do you find the investor? They're just idiots.
And the thing is, if you do a good job once, that's not just going to end with your investor. They're likely to tell their family, their friends, and that's how we've gained investors.
So in that point, so Rachel summarised it perfectly in regards to how do we find investors. Now, I think every cycle of a project is when you're coming into contact with the people. There's two people here. There's one, the investor, obviously who you're helping, but the second side of this is the actual landlord themselves. So what we've been finding is educating the portfolio landlord, that then they see what we're doing, and then ultimately the landlord's coming back to us.
And selling more deals, you mean?
In regards to when he sold his property, he wants to deploy that capital. And then also...
Oh, wow.
It's like a boomerang effect.
Yeah, it's a huge boomerang.
So hold on. So the seller that then gets a chunk of money, you're then approaching and going, hey, you just made a chunk of money from that sale. Do you want to buy some proper properties now?
Correct. But then there's even the third angle of that is that when obviously they're a portfolio landlord, is again the education piece of telling them you have equity, you can turn it to liquid funds.
Yeah.
But then coming to your actual question of how do we find investors, basically coming from the world of finance in regards to corporate finance, M&A, accountants and whatever, is there's a lot of people out there who really are unaware of the next 12 months. So there's people who have got generational wealth. There's people who have precious funds that they don't know how to use.
Yeah.
So breaking the different types of investors down, what we always like to do is just like a 30 minutes call starting off to understand where are they in their process. So we have a little bit of a traffic light system where the green ones are the active investors.
The hot ones.
Exactly that. And again, coming back from your foundational education has helped us develop that. But then these are people who are liquid with a couple of million and happy to transact on a monthly basis. Then you go the orange ones who maybe might transact once every 3 months, and then the red ones are this is your life funds. So these are the ones who have to be,
They've got 50 grand that they've saved up. They're really scared. They don't know what to do with it.
Onto it.
Exactly. So it's like holding that baby. And obviously you've worked so hard for those funds, but you need those funds to work hard for you.
Yes.
So that's
how do you deal with people that have got 50 grand and they've spent 30 years saving it up and they're clinging to it really tightly and they're scared? How do you get them to invest?
Well, with those people, we get really creative. We understand and appreciate that because we've been there. So obviously they're then thinking, well, my rate of return, I'm not going to get that with a bank or whatever else. So what we do with those people is say, well, maybe BRR is not suitable for you right now, but how about you consider other cash flowing strategies? And that's obviously where, with your foundational education, that's where it's really helped us because we didn't know about the rents. And also, we weren't aware of the lease options. So for those type of people, sometimes it's more suitable for a rent-to-rent. So a really, really low cost entry, but also very safeguarded with very, very hard negotiation tools that we do. It's like a minimum of 5 years, liquidated damages, 30 days notice period to make sure they're safeguarded. But then maybe if someone wants to pay a little bit extra to build a portfolio, we then do lease options.
Yeah. And I think another thing, just pulling into what Ben said, where we have those calls, it's kind of like a fact-finding mission for us as well to understand where are they at, are they happy to put it into one property and then try and let it appreciate? Are they in a position where they maybe, have a bit of spare time or they're happy to take on rent-to-rents, they're happy to, deploy that across multiple assets? Or are they more, because generationally you're going to have a harder time selling a rent-to-rent to somebody who's 70 than somebody who's 20 because it's a lot more out of the box. Do you know what I mean? So
and it all just comes down to two fundamental things of how much time do you have and what's your education, and what is it you're looking to achieve. So
time, knowledge, money.
Exactly.
3 assets. How did you come to the decision to invest in the academy? Because that's a big investment. And I know after, am I right in thinking, did you do it together or did one follow?
Yes, no, we did it both together.
But then you had friends follow. You got people from NHS and that all now enrolling.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
it's crazy, to be honest. And what the amazing thing is like we've not proactively like reached out. We've been honest about our journey and, you know, we've been wholly truthful, but we've not like approached people and like hard sold it and like, what are you doing or anything like that. But like, yeah, one of my close friends that was nursing with me, you know, like 8-9 years qualified, absolutely slogging it, travelling all around the country, doing the same job, 5 days, living in Airbnbs, staying away from home like I was for the first 3 years of us being together, are seeing a different way. And it's like mind-blowing, isn't it?
How does it feel seeing your friends join the academy and get the because the best gift I think you can give someone is education.
Yeah, totally agree.
It's amazing. It's even more so that they've done it kind of off of their own back, in that they've seen like, and because they know us personally as well, like it's not just following us on socials and seeing the success that we're having, it's seeing the change in us personally, like
Massively, yeah.
that personal development extends beyond like the figure that's in your bank account. It's your whole approach, kind of what you favour most. And I think that's been telling. Like people have said to us like, God, you guys are like glowing, like you seem like, obviously we're happy before, but just it almost like switches something in you. And like you say, it's a lot about like your mindset. And I think when you approach things with less of a poor mindset of, you know, it's life changing.
And there's nothing more liberating for us is that seeing someone that is doing the grind, we're talking the 60, 70, 80 hours a week, and then them having a breath of fresh air and then realising there's an easier way. There's been some like pinch me moments with family members where they said, if only I was doing this 30, 40 years ago. And when I had conversations with like, because again, we're quite fortunate that we've got commercial, private architects in the family, we've got all sorts of different types of trade. And then they're like, how are you guys doing it now?
Yeah.
And there could have been an opportunity where even my own father, he's got 32 years in basically fire service, but also he's got his own plumbing business. And there was opportunity where he could be buying houses for hundreds of pounds, obviously before fiat currency went so bad and inflation, etc. And he could be sitting on 30, 40 properties.
And like you say often is like, you'll tell people and people won't believe you, but then when they see it, like,
Seeing
and that
is believing.
was for us, it was kind of like, no, surely to God, like, is it kind of like some scheme? What is it? And then when they see it, it's almost like you can see that, not that they're resentful to us, but you can see that kind of feeling in their eyes that they're just like, what have I been doing? Like I've slaved my butt away in, you know, as teachers, fire service nurses, whatever it is, for 40, 50 years of their life. And it's kind of eye-opening for us, isn't it? That we want to have that impact on our own families, like generationally. That it goes beyond kind of, you know, just revenue for us. It's a complete change of purpose and direction. And
even like things like rent to rent, you know, people will look into it and think like, oh, it's some weird little get rich quick scheme. It's like, no, it's what Premier Inn do.
Yeah.
Premier Inn will lease a building and then they'll lease it out at a higher amount as a hotel. Well, that's the same. And you've got how many of that? 4 of those?
4. Yeah.
Correct.
I think it's just about having your wits about you. Obviously, when you're part of the academy, you get all of your contracts. You've got a lawyer that's fantastic, that's available to give you mentor calls if you've ever any questions. And as long as you've got the correct safeguards in place and you understand, you know, as with any investment, what are the potential risks here? What are the benefits? How can I safeguard myself against those risks? Any deal that we sell, particularly in the rent to rents, we negotiate obviously the grace period to give them time so that they're not starting off on the wrong foot. They're not worrying about the cash flow. They're rushing getting the property up to standard. That
and selling it to the right kind of person that understands the business and understands that they're not buying an income stream, they're buying a business opportunity.
Obviously liquidating damages that we make sure are in there so that if they're forced to exit, for say the landlord's said that it's in line with the terms of the head lease and it turns out it's not, and you know the evidence I've seen isn't correct, that they're not going to be left out of pocket for that and they're compensated.
Your rent to rents, are they lease options or?
3 of them are.
3 or 4, yes.
That is brilliant.
Yeah.
So explain to me the business of rent to rents and lease options and how it works, and maybe share the case studies of your 3 properties.
Sure.
One of the landlords that we have, so investors, he, as Ben said, he's trying to diversify his portfolio, so he's more than happy to offer properties out on rent-to-rent agreements, guaranteed rental returns. When we approached about the topic of lease options, when we understood that he wanted to reinvest that capital, he knew and he was smart that you can leverage that capital in creative ways. So when we discussed lease options with him and he understood that I can actually use this to kind of back my own activities.
Yeah.
That was kind of like a double-edged thing, wasn't it? That it was women for everyone.
Yeah, massively. And I think the rent-to-rent with a landlord, and this is why I tell the viewers and everyone who comes into contact with us in the academy or at networking groups, is we try our hardest to find portfolio landlords, because they're really the ones you can add the most value to. With a landlord that has 1 and 2 properties, yes, you can offer a lot of value. However, with someone running through the difficulties that you've documented for most landlords, and obviously the whole hysteria of landlords out at the moment, the indirect issues of obviously interest rates, the hidden inflation, which obviously tax, and all the other creeping things that are hitting landlords. When we approach a portfolio landlords, it's giving them more certainty, first of all. So obviously the whole pitch of a rent to rent, to give them the guaranteed rent, peace of mind. But then when you start to build that relationship with that portfolio landlord, they then start to see other strategies. So with the portfolio landlords that we have, they've always been on ASTs, single tenant lets.
Yeah.
So now they've actually seen this wide world. And again, the wide world of commercial to residentials, or larger block opportunities, and et cetera, all the different rental strategies. So there's quite a lot of portfolio landlords that have actually want to diversify and go from ASTs to suddenly start to go into bigger things.
Right.
So we've come along and said, well, proof of concept is the rent to rent, but then a lease option is just saying to a landlord, we like your property, would you look to sell your property in the future? And it could be 2, 3, 5 years from now, and we agree that purchase price.
Where are you working? Where's your area?
This is the northwest, Manchester and Liverpool
Primarily
specifically.
Manchester, Greater Manchester and Liverpool, but I'd say 90% are solely Manchester.
Yeah. We've got a lot of people obviously on the Academy with properties in Manchester. We had a guy who put his property for rent, and he had 27 applications in a day.
Yep,
Yeah.
believe
They say
it,
it's like 30 to 1 average for properties available to tenants that are applying.
So it's a very interesting market.
Hugely.
Yeah.
In that there's a lot of demand.
But
Yeah.
if you find those tired landlords that, for want of a better phrase, have been there, done it,
Well, just because the market's booming in one sense, you might have a landlord that has had a bad tenant.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Who's drained his resources financially, is mentally, emotionally, and now he's like, oh, I hate this, I'm sick of this, and then you come in and say, let me rent it, company let,
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll put a guest in, no tenants, and I'll buy it from you in 5 years, 100% market value.
Exactly.
Yeah. We take pride in what we do, so when they see what we have done in one property, you don't have to sell it again. They understand what you do.
What's in it for you then? I understand from a landlord's perspective who's tired, you renting the property off them, guaranteed rent, and then you buy it in 5 years, cool. What's in it for you, the investor?
That income in the meantime. So like I said, it's the service accommodation that enabled us to make Ben full-time in the business.
Yeah.
So it's provided us with the revenue. We make approximately an average of about £6,000 per month across the 4 properties.
Is that profit, yeah?
Profit,
Yes. So
£1,500
net
per
income.
month.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's just passive pretty much.
Yeah, and some months it's been more than that when we've
Yeah.
got 3-4 month direct trade bookings.
Yeah,
So.
and we target mainly houses, so we don't really go for apartments in the city centre.
Yeah.
Our target guests are contractors, professional workers, relocators that want
So
houses.
you've got the option to buy the property. What happens if at the end of the 5 years it's gone up loads in value, and then the seller wants to renegotiate the price, or what would happen in that?
So with every relationship, we make sure it's a win-win for everybody, and we don't want anyone to become resentful. So first of all, obviously we have the negotiation. Second point is we put everything in heads of terms, so everything is completely clarified. And in stage 3 is you put it obviously in a legal contract. Now, coming back to your point of avoiding anything where someone's resentful, we also put a capital appreciation share in there as well.
So if you have an option to buy it for 150, and then at the end it's worth 250, and you've made 100 grand profit effectively, you'll give them up to 25% of that. Right. But it's whatever you agree in the first instance.
Yeah.
And you have a restriction order on the title deeds. Everything's all done kosher. There's no way they can wriggle out of it because it's all been done with solicitors.
Yeah, precisely.
Exactly.
And they're happy at that point in time. So going back to, if it has gone up, even if we didn't have that in there, you've got the protection in terms of they were happy with those terms at the time.
Yeah.
And so that's what's agreed upon to transact.
You guys are like a wealth of knowledge now, though, when it comes to property, like all the strategies, service accommodation, the lease options. It's great. And you've been on the Academy for how long? A year?
Well,
Just over a year.
Yeah, a year and 2 months.
Yeah, year and 2 months.
Wow. How's it been? How's the training been and the courses? And
It's been absolutely amazing for us. I think it's put everything in one place with kind of one hotline and one like straight route for support. But for us, what it gave us was we already had some understanding of BRR, but what we didn't have was access to certain kind of teams in regards to having a solicitor on standby, having a mentor such as yourself and other people within the academy that have scaled their portfolio.
It's that security blanket,
and then,
isn't it?
And then the other thing for us is really, when looking at BRR, is then the toolbox, in the way you call it yourself, is that we knew about ASTs, we knew about HMOs, we never knew about the other things like service accommodation, short stay lets, supported assisted living, and things like that. So for us, that's then allowed us to go into every single BRR project, and it's opened our mind in that we walk in, not only can you change the configuration, but obviously the gross rental as well.
Not just in terms of from that perspective, but in terms of the business that we have now, obviously we're very grateful to you guys because it's given us the essentials that we needed to see how we could move forward. We came to this thinking, we've got a little pot of cash, we're going to go into BRR. Realistically, if we'd have gone it alone, we probably would have lumped it into some little like mid-terraced house up north and sat collecting my £200 a month and just like waiting, thinking I'm going to get rich one day. But this has opened our eyes to like creative strategies. You wouldn't be full-time without it. We wouldn't have this business. We wouldn't be generating the revenue without it. So obviously we're just completely thankful to yourself, the team.
Well, I appreciate it, and you've worked bloody hard and deserve every success you've got. But it's an interesting point though, Rachel, because I've heard people say, "Why would you invest, 20 grand into education when you could buy a house for that?" Yeah, you could. You could buy a shitty little house in Grimsby and make £200 a month profit, maybe at best. But what you've done is now you're making 30 grand a month because property is the second best investment. The best is yourself. And I'm really pleased to see how you've grown. And I've heard nothing but good things from your investors. What's the best way people want to reach out, get in touch with you guys? What's the best way to do that?
Come straight to our socials, but also reach out to us directly. We've got our mailing list, and with that mailing list, we give always a 30-minute free conversation with any person. But then also anyone who's looking at property, we also give free 15 minutes. So anyone within the academy, we give all of our time to them.
And that's the thing, man. When you give value like that, you reap what you sow. So we'll put your Instagram links and stuff in the description to the video. What would you say to somebody that was considering coming down to a crash course? Maybe he's been watching for a while, they're on the fence and they're thinking about jumping in and doing some training. What would your advice be from someone that's done it?
So you got nothing to lose, like it's a quid.
It is, yeah.
I remember when I booked it when Ben was asleep actually, and I thought, oh, he's going to kill me. And I was like, if you're definitely up for it, you definitely want to go. And he was like, yeah, let's go for it. We just moved house, just got a dog. That's like lumped the dog on family members. And it was Tony that we signed up with, and it felt like our eyes had been opened. Obviously we weren't naive. We didn't think we're going to like become millionaires overnight, but you see the different techniques and the different strategies, and it makes it accessible. What I love about the academy is that you've got people who traditionally invest in property, but this is making it accessible to people from backgrounds like ours that you would never be able to leave your job within a year just investing in BRRs with a small pot of cash. You get to be creative, the network's fantastic, and I think once you're in that environment and you see people winning, like even just in this, like every week people are just constantly, we're amazed by what the achievements of the people around us.
And the growth as well, yes.
Like once you've seen that and you're around it, you couldn't go back to having a full-time job again, could we?
Never.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, I'm really happy to know you guys, and thanks so much for sharing and coming on the show. So all the best in the future.
Thank you so much.
It's our pleasure.